I'll just read the scripture, and then when they're ready, I'll get it up for in a second. You guys ready? We'll go to Exodus chapter 18. I feel like God really gave me a word. This is my church, so even though I've been gone for a while, I feel like I'm right at home. So Exodus chapter 18, if you're here, I hope you feel at home. Hope you feel at family. If it's your first time here, hope you really feel that you just have a great experience, and know that we're a family here, and we hope you enjoy your experience here at Victory Outreach. Exodus chapter 18. We're ready? It says, Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian, heard about everything God had done. I'll give context about this in just a moment. For Moses and his people, the Israelites. He heard especially about how the Lord had rescued them from Egypt. Earlier, Moses had sent his wife, Zipporah, and his two sons named Gershom. For Moses had said, when the boy was born, I have been born a foreigner in a foreign land. His second son was Eleazar. For Moses had said, the God of my ancestors was my helper. He rescued me from the sword of Pharaoh. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, now came to visit Moses in the wilderness. We're going to remember, Jethro came to visit Moses in the wilderness. He brought Moses' wife and two sons with him. And when they arrived, while Moses and the people were camped near the mountain of God, Jethro had sent a message to Moses saying, I, Jethro, your father-in-law, am coming to see you with your wife and two sons. We're going to verse 17. It says, Moses' father-in-law replied. There's a whole thing that happened where Moses began to tell Jethro all the things that God did. Now I'll give a little context on it. He opened the Red Seas for them. They were in slavery for 400 years, and now they have finally experienced freedom. So Moses was letting Jethro know about all the amazing things God did in between that. Now pick it up in 17. He sees him the next day. And when he sees him the next day, he sees him working, and he sees something a little different that kind of sticks out to him. So what Moses' father-in-law said, what are you doing? What are you doing? It is not good. Isn't that every in-law's favorite words to hear? Has your father-in-law ever told you did something not good? Your mother-in-law? For all my married people, say amen. And then in verse 24, he did something good though. Moses, in verse 24, it says, Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. Could all the in-laws give God some praise here? Because doesn't it feel good when the one that married your daughter, that married your son, that's dating your daughter, is dating your son, they listen to everything. You say, I'm learning that right now, I want you to tell your neighbor, the person next to you, your friend next to you, your family next to you, we're messengers in the wilderness. Messengers in the wilderness. I love that where we're picking up the story. Like I said, God did all these amazing things. They opened up the Red Sea, did a lot of miracles, and we pick it up. This is 3 months later after Moses and the million Israelites that finally crossed over the Red Sea. God saw God do miraculous things. It was a miracle that they're even where they're at. I think if we're honest with some of us, where we're at right now is just a miracle within itself. Could someone say amen to me with me? We know if people knew the stories of where we came from, we've come from some dark places, but God's been good. So we pick it up 3 months later, and a lot happened. See, even in these 3 months of them journeying out of Egypt into the promised land, they saw the miracle of the Red Seas happen. It split, and they were able to go through and experience freedom. But not only that, as they were going through, just 3 days in, they were hungry. Not only were they hungry, they were thirsty. And when they were thirsty, they finally found somewhere that had some water. They drank it. It was bitter water. Have you guys ever just had some nasty water before? Like, okay, I could drink sink water here. I don't know if you're supposed to, but I do it anyway. But if you go to Los Angeles, if you ever try to drink sink water, don't do it. You will destroy your guts. Definitely don't do it in Mexico. The women that are going to the women's convention, don't drink water out of a faucet. Drink it all out of a bottle. So they were drinking water, and they started to complain a little bit. They were having some challenges, and it was bitter water. And maybe some of us, we've had some bitter moments in life lately. We've been drinking some waters of life that have not tasted very good. We've been experiencing some pressure. We've been drinking water, wondering why it's not refreshing us. Instead, it tastes bitter. But God has a way of turning bitter things into sweet things. And he changed that water and made it clean so they could drink it. Not only did he provide water for them, but he also, just a few days later, provided food for them. They called it manna, and it sounds like I would not want to eat bread every day, but it was sweet bread. This bread was what nourished them and sustained them. And not only that, when they were continuing on the journey, they ran out of water again. And Moses the people were complaining to Moses, and when Moses went to the Lord said, get your rod, hit the rock, and when he did, the water began to flow, and they began to drink water again. They saw, this is just in 3 months. This is a whole lot of stuff happening in 3 months. So the Lord began to do great miracles for them. Then they not only saw the miracles of water and food and water, but they also experienced their first battle with the Amalekites. And when they did, every time Moses' hands were lifted, it said that they began to experience victory, and they won that battle. See, there's sometimes you are going through battles, you are drinking bitter waters, and in the midst of it, you just still see how God is good in the midst of wilderness and deserts. See, I don't know about you, but when I hear about a desert, I want no part of it. I want no part. I know the weather ain't the best here right now. That's why when it comes to holiday season, we go to the nice places. We go to Spain. We'll go to where the sun is out. Wave at me if you need a tan right now. I need a tan. When I came back from the winter, people were laughing at me because my head was pale. It's because I was wearing beanies all winter long over here. I had to get some LA sun on my scalp. I was hurting. I didn't realize it. I was like, dang, man, what happened? It was a whole nother, it was like my face was one color and my head was another. Bald people problems, you know? So when we think of deserts, I think we automatically, and wildernesses, we think automatically this is going to be a place I don't want to be. I want to get out of it. I want nothing to do with it. Because wilderness, you think of dry things. You think of pain. How many of you guys have gone through some pain in your life? We think of things that cause us uncomfortability, uncertainty. You feel stuck in that place. But I love when we read the Bible because we preach good messages on the wilderness. Or we encourage people, hey, you're just going through the wilderness. You'll get out on the other side of it. But when you look at the Bible does never speaks about wildernesses being bad places. And although they could seem like they're harmful, they're building places. Let me begin to talk to you about the wilderness, because what you begin to realize when you look at wilderness or desert in the original Hebrew language, it begins to actually mean, desert means, it is a place, it's in Hebrew, desert is midbar. So I'll say midbar. I'm going to teach you something here today. I learned it. Midbar. But when you actually write it out in the original Hebrew writing, it also means the same thing, desert, and it also means speak. See, when you begin to translate deserts, that means that's where a place that God speaks. Some of you have been resisting the place that God's been wanting to speak to you in. And I began to think about all the people in our city. They're in wildernesses, not knowing that they are in perfect position right now for God to speak something fresh into them. Some of you were invited because someone spoke to you in a dry place. And now you find yourself here a year later saying, man, I thank God that I was in that place in life, because when they spoke to me, it was a good thing. And even though I wanted to get out of it, I thank God for it, because that's where God spoke to me. I don't know if I'm talking to the right people here this morning, because when I look at Victory Arch people, we don't got it all together all the time. I'm not a perfect person. I didn't have the perfect story growing up, but God in his mercy in my wilderness spoke to me. And when he spoke to me, he pulled me out of my wilderness into a good place. How many thank God that you're in a good place? And even though you may not be where you want to be, you're in the place that you are, and you're not where you used to be. See, God had brought the children of Israel to a place to speak to them. See, I think that we got to realize the place that God has placed us in certain seasons. And there is times when he is speaking, and there is times you work and you serve off of what he spoke. See, the wilderness is a place where God encounters people with his voice. Wildernesses are places, like we said, that we want to avoid because it's a place of isolation. It's a place of pain. It's a place of even barrenness and dryness. Some of us during the summer, we forget to drink water. We get real dry, chapped lips, dry skin. But can I encourage someone that feels like they're in the wilderness here this morning, that you're in a good place, or this afternoon, you're in a good place because you're positioned for God to speak to your life. Your ear is listening a little closer to the voice of God. And even though you feel like you're battling the voices in your mind, I promise you behind that voice, there is a still small voice trying to speak to you to say, just keep going. I'm with you. I'm beside you. I'm walking with you. I'm speaking to you. I'm still making way for you. I still love you. My plan did not change for you. It may not look good on the outside of what's happening, but I promise you I'm doing a good thing on the inside of you right now. I think when we're in wilderness, we got to pay attention to the voices that are speaking to us. See, I love that when we look at the story, you be able to see that when Moses was in the wilderness, he wasn't there with his family. Isn't that weird? Where was his family? Where's Marika and Julie? I'm not in a barren place. I love where I'm at right now. I'm doing all right. You want to know how? Okay, so the first 2 nights I came here without Julie, I was helpless for dinner. So I got oven make pizzas. I should have showed that picture too because I sent it to Pastor Doug. They were like those Albert Heijn ones, the small ones that come with 9. I heated up all 9. I even got a flatbread one too. I went hard in the paint. I wasn't playing games. Man need to eat, you know? And I sent it to Julie. I'm like, man, I miss you. Don't worry, I can cook. I just didn't buy groceries, though. I just flew in. See, when his family was gone, it's weird that it is almost like, why would his family not be with him? Doesn't it feel like when we're in wilderness that we could be around people and still feel so far away from you? Just feel like you're going through the wilderness on your own. Your family's not going through that, but you're going through that. Your wife isn't going through that. Your husband isn't going through it, but you're going through it. Your children might be going through it. You might be going through it, but all your friends aren't going through it. Your colleagues are all experiencing a good thing at work, and you feel like you're stressed at work. You ever feel like you're the only one going through a certain situation? You're the only one feeling certain emotions. You're the only one having the head trips. You're the only one struggling with that same thing over and over. Moses was in a place, and those children of Israel were almost in a place. Why was his family not with him? But listen, here's the good thing. That even though you feel alone, that's a lie because you're not really alone. Like I said, there's a voice in the wilderness that is calling out to those that are willing to hear the voice of the one calling in the wilderness. I love it because you see Jethro was playing the role of being a voice on behalf of God to Moses. I think we got to pay attention, like I said, to people that God sends us into wildernesses, because even though they may be a voice in a moment, that one word could shift everything for you. You don't know that you might be the one that God sends into someone else's wilderness to shift everything for them. Your one word of encouragement could change something for somebody. That's why I love when our hosts, when we walk in, they're smiling at us. They say hello because that smile could change someone else's day. When everyone else is walking by them, no one else is paying attention to them. They could walk into the house. That's why I thank God for those that serve in ministry here and show up to worship, because they could see someone like themselves saying, if they could do it, then maybe I could do it. If they could experience a breakthrough, maybe I could experience a breakthrough. I remember when they first walked into the church and how God's doing something in them now. See, some of you might be Jethro's and some of you might be Moses's. Some of you might be the voice and some of you might need a voice. There might be people that you are in a wilderness. Nonetheless, you are either going to be a voice to someone or you're going to be on the receiving end. And I promise you, you want to be on both ends at some times. There's going to be some times where we feel like Moses and we're isolated. We're experiencing challenges. And there's also that time when you're a Jethro and you step into a room and you bring encouragement and you're able to speak, give wisdom, and you're able to give advice, and you're able to pray someone through something. You're able to do something to help someone get on the other side. I just want to talk about a few things here this afternoon. And I want to talk about the don'ts of the wilderness. The don'ts of the wilderness. I want you to say, don't avoid the wilderness, but step into it. I don't know about you, but you will not convince me to go out into the desert and just walk through there. First of all, I'll get sunburned. Secondly, I'm not built for that. I'm not built for hot weather. I like warm weather. I don't like hot weather. Any people who love hot weather? Where's my hot weather people at? Nope. Where's my, I like it warm, like the sun, but I don't want to burn either. Wave at me. All right, half of you guys how many of you guys just like just the cloudy day? How many of you guys like rain in Holland? All right, I'm getting a feel for some of you. I got some half-honest people here. We're working on it. Don't worry, you'll work with me. Some of you guys didn't say anything. It's all right, we'll work on it. See, don't avoid the wilderness, but step into it. It's so funny. One of the things I feared most about being a dad was changing diapers. Now it's kind of funny, but okay, so one of the first times I had to change a diaper on my own, me and Julie for the first week in this long time of being a parent, what we would do is we would change. It was like a team thing. We had to change it. It was our first time changing diapers together. So we're figuring it out as we go. I still don't put it on right. Julie tells me I don't put it tight enough, and then a party after that. So one of the first things I remember, Julie, she's like, "Hey, could you just watch the baby? I'm gonna go freshen up real quick." I said, "Yeah, of course." This is in the morning, and right when she walks out, I'm sitting there on my phone. I think I was trying to maybe fall back asleep. I have no idea. Good dad stuff, right? When the baby's wide awake, fall asleep right there. That's good. Anyways, I hear Maraika, give me a gift. And I hear it, and I think to myself, I'm just pretend I didn't hear that. If I pretend and I just act like it didn't happen, right when he come in, I'm like, "You smell that, Julie?" So I'm sitting there, and after a minute of contemplating, I'm like, is this my moment? Is this what fatherhood is all about? Is this what I signed up? Pastor Philip, I didn't know if I signed up for the right thing at this point. And I was thinking, this is my time. If I was ever going to do it, I'm going to do it now. Good news, I did it. It worked out well. So I know how to change diapers now, partially. So I deserve that right there. I deserve that. Pastor Philip and Pastor Doug used to talk to me like, "Man, I can't wait for you to be a dad because you're going to change." I said, "What's wrong with me now? I'm good." I think if we're all honest, we're all really good at avoiding things we don't want to do. Some of you guys know how to just avoid the right amount of work at work. So then your colleague could pick it up. You know just enough to get by to pass your class. You know just enough to do. We just know how to avoid things. Come on, don't lie to me. You guys I know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to some people that sometimes we love to work hard, but sometimes we like to avoid some things too. Act like you didn't hear what they said. Act like the mess isn't there. Like the dishes aren't piling up. Like you don't need to do laundry. Like you're not running out of food. We try to avoid so many different things, and we become masters. We have mastered the art of avoiding things. I love that Jethro, when he heard about where Moses was and what happened with all the people, he could have easily, I don't know, like I said, I don't want to walk into a place like that. He's been away from his children. He's been with his daughter and now his grandkids, and all of a sudden he's invited to go into the wilderness, and he came to visit. And I thank God that we have that example, because he gives us an example of what it is not to avoid what God is calling us to step into. When the Holy Spirit began to prompt Jesus, you know what he did? He led him into the wilderness. I thank God that we have examples of what it is to not avoid what is in front of us, not avoid the need. We're here today because almost 40 years ago, we were talking in a meeting, 40 years ago, Victory Outreach came into Holland, into Europe. This was our first church in all of Europe. Now we have 7 churches around the nation of Holland. We're in Germany. We are in London. We are in Ireland. We are getting ready to go into new church plants. And the reason why is because there was people that said, "Hey, I'm not going to avoid the call, the prompting of God on my life. I got to step into everything that God has for me. If that means I got to relocate my family and go to another country, then I'll do it. I wonder if we have a church here today that says, hey, I'm not going to avoid when God prompts something in me. Some of you have been prompted for ministry. Some of you have been prompted to be an evangelist in your workplace. Some of you have been prompted to be the priest of your home. Some of you have been prompted to be a voice in people's wildernesses. Can I encourage you here today that prompting is God right there? That is Him calling you into somebody else's wilderness to be a voice. You're not a just because believer here this afternoon. I promise you. There is purpose all over you. There is purpose with you in this seat. There is a calling for you in this house. There is a plan. There is people that God has called you to reach. There is, for some in this room, I can't wait the day that we see people raised up in this church that go into other lands. And imagine when we go to Belgium, and because we go to Belgium, then we can go to France. And when we start planting more churches all over the world, I thank God that we have an international family. That's why God brought some of you in this house. But sometimes our natural inclination is to avoid what God begins to prompt us to do. Or am I the only one that's ever felt like that before? I remember I share this story often. I used to tell people I'm never called to be a missionary. I love America. And I remember, I promise you, this is months before I was getting engaged, proposed to my wife. I remember having a conversation with some leaders and telling them that, hey, I don't know if that's me. I love traveling, though. You guys love traveling, love holiday. And I was like, man, I love it. I love to be part of it. But, I love where I'm at. I love California. The food's great over there. I love Mexican food. My family's there. And all of a sudden, right when I was getting ready to propose to Jules, we had a conversation with Pastor Sonny, her grandpa. And when we had this conversation, he began to ask us, or I guess you could say tell us, hey, what do you think about going to Holland when you get married? And at first I was down, and then I think about it after. I'm like, what am I doing? Why would I think that? Why would I say, yeah? Why would I agree to this? But then I began to see that there was purpose in that. Because I wouldn't have experienced the greatest joy of being here and seeing God work miracles here and getting to know a whole lot of you and getting to get a bigger family. I got a Dutch family now, and now I got a new home, and I've been seeing God do new things. And if I would have avoided when God put me in places, I wouldn't have experienced the best that God had for me. If I would have turned a blind eye to God calling me in my wildernesses and the voice calling me to a higher place, I would have never stepped into this. See, back then, I was telling Sister Mitzi just a few years back, I was in my own wilderness. Could we be honest? I love to. I'm gonna get comfortable. My shoes are off right now. I'm on the couch. I'm talking to you. I got my do-rag to keep my hair down. I'm just kidding. I remember going through one of the hardest seasons of my life, feeling like I couldn't even see the best for myself. And I remember, I thank God for Pastor Tim there in Victory Arch, San Jose. He called me up, and he would always encourage me, and he would tell me that there's more for my life. Don't you forget what God promised you. Don't you forget. And God was using him as a voice in my life. And if I wouldn't have responded to that voice, I would have stayed in my home city in a good place. Nothing wrong with the place, but that wouldn't have unlocked my destiny. Some of us, we allowed our wilderness to cloud us of what we remember God putting on us and reminding us of. And I'm here to tell you, like John the Baptist, a voice in the wilderness that makes a path for others to go behind. I want to tell you that you're brought in this house because there's purpose on you. There's going to be people that follow you into this house. There's going to be people encouraged by your life in this place. Keep anchoring deep in the wilderness. Watch how God pulls you out on the other side of it, and watch you be someone that pays attention to other people in their wilderness, because you're going to pull them out and walk them through the journey like Jethro did with Moses. He spoke a word into him that shifted everything for him. Could someone say amen right here? He didn't avoid the wilderness. He stepped into the wilderness. I love what Jethro represented and everything he was. When you look at Jethro, he wasn't Jethro when he was first mentioned in the Bible in Exodus chapter 2, when Moses went up over and he left Egypt after him making a mistake. He went up, and that's when he met his wife and his father-in-law, and his original name was Reuel, and Reuel meant friend of God. Not only that, he said he was the priest of Midian. So he was a priest of the Most High God and also a friend of God. So you got to recognize that when you step into people's wilderness, you step into people's wildernesses as a friend of God. You step in as a priest on behalf of God. You step in with the grace of God on your life. You walk into work with the grace on your life. You step in here on a Sunday afternoon with the grace on your life, because you're a friend of God here this afternoon. He doesn't say, I'm just a Lord, I'm in the sky and I'm so big I can't pay attention to you. No, he's personal enough to be a friend to you. He loves you and he's beside you. He lives within you. He's beside you and he's walking with you just like a best friend, just like a brother, just like someone that is guiding you through life. He is a friend. See, I think wilderness have I guess you could say, an effect to make you forget who you are. Some of us in our journey have forgot who we are. I wonder how many of us are waiting for a voice in our life. Some of us, we have been so long into a wilderness place that almost like a fear, comfortability has hit us where we can't even imagine life outside of it. Not only did they not avoid the wilderness, but I also want to tell you not to develop a wilderness living, but promise living. Don't develop wilderness living, but promise living. See, Moses didn't realize that he was developing certain patterns in his life that were going to actually hold back the Israelites. See, what he was doing at this time is his father-in-law's advice saw him. He would, every morning, he would sit down as judge and sit down with everyone one by one, and he would be able to hear all their challenges, all their disputes, everything, every conflict they're experiencing, and he would be there on a judge on behalf of God, and he was speaking to imagine doing that for 1 million people, by the way. It's a lot of people. Like a lot of people. Some of us, we can't even answer the phone after work because we're like, man, one person is too much. I can't even handle this no more. When you walk through the door and the people you live with want to talk to you, and you're like, man, I don't want to talk right now. Moses was doing that all day long. He was hearing people, and he thought it was good for a moment, but what he didn't realize is he was setting himself up to burn out, and he was setting himself up to experience frustration, and not only him to experience that frustration, but the people to experience that frustration, because they're wondering why only one person can't meet all these people's needs at once. They're going to get frustrated with you. Have you ever gotten frustrated with somebody because they weren't making time to talk to you? Like some of you have been mad at your spouse for some time. You're like, man, they have not given me time. We're praying for everybody. We're praying. The voice. Here's the voice. Talk to your spouse. Talk to them. In Exodus 18, 17, and 18, it says, Moses' father-in-law replied, what you are doing is not good. You and these people who came to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you, and you could not handle it alone. See, wilderness living has a way of hindering the things that God wants to do in your life, and not only in your life, but those around you. But promise living has a way of making way for you and a way for others as well. I think sometimes have you ever had something you thought was right, but you were wrong all along about something, like a fact? Okay, one that's really funny, I'll tell you. I feel like I'm telling the same story twice, but I remember Frankie laughed at me one time. I was speaking in a chapel, or it could have been actually here at the UTC, and I was telling a story. I was just telling Sister Mitzi about it. There was a great analogy about the vision that God gives us, and I was like, yeah, everything orbits around the earth. And I said this like 8 times before on public stages, and no one ever corrected me. So when I finally finished sharing that everything orbits around the sun, by the way, people, just in case, I learned that from Frankie. Apparently, I didn't pay attention to science class too well. And when I'm like, yeah, I was with conviction. He was saying that Pastor Ed gave a great analogy about the vision that God has given our ministry. He said, listen, the vision is like the sun, and every personal ambition that God gives us is almost like the dreams and the personal, like to have a business and a family and have finances and all that. Those are almost like the things that orbit around. But when we keep our focus on the main thing, everything else takes care of itself. Everything stays in order. But imagine the universe if we focus on Pluto and everything orbited around the Earth or Pluto. Our universe would be messed up. Everything gets out of order, and the same thing could happen to us when we focus on those things in the wilderness. We're going to get our life out of order, and we wonder why we're frustrated, and we wonder why everything else isn't working because you're only focusing on money right now. You're only focusing on yourself right now. And sometimes you do got to lean in and work on something. Sometimes we need to renew our minds. Sometimes we're in some head trips, and we need to get out of some places. But there's times where we got to remember who we are. We got to get back to the place of locking in with the vision and building God's house and expanding the kingdom of God. And when we do that, everything else will take care of itself. My life's an example of that. I may not be a perfect example, and that's okay. But when I put my life back in order and I made the decision to step into ministry, my wife came into my life. Then my dog came into my life. Everything began to work. Everything started. Provision came into my life. God began to provide for my life when I put everything in order, and I had a good job, and I still didn't feel like I had enough, but it was like I got the God of more than enough when I put my life back in order, focusing on His plan for my life. So I was given this illustration. Everything revolves around the sun. I mean, the earth, and Frankie, I look back, and he's laughing at me. I'm like, Frankie, what are you laughing at? And he tells me that no, it doesn't orbit around the earth, it orbits around the sun. I was like, dang, I felt so dumb. I went to my room, I'm like, just got the iPad, smacked my face. What are you doing? But sometimes, have you ever been like, you know you're wrong about something, but you're just like, man, you don't know any other way? You're like, no, this is still fact. Like, this is still right. No, it's not right. Here's the facts right here. But you're so convinced that you're like, man, this has to be right. This is the only way I know it. See, wilderness living, you start to accept things that aren't facts anymore because you're like, man, I've been in this place for so long. I can't even imagine myself outside of this way of living, outside of this thought pattern. I can't even imagine forgiving that person. I can't even imagine living, going beyond that pain when that person hurt me. Now I can't even imagine my life beyond this moment. And we start to adopt ourselves and adapt into wilderness living, and we forget that there's a promise that God has for our lives. There's a promise that God has that you're free, and He that Son sets free is free indeed, that He could renew a mind, He could change a future, that He has plans that are good for you. Even though people spoke down to you, God has a plan that speaks something good over you. He doesn't have a plan to harm you. He has a plan to prosper you, and He didn't just forget you on the journey. He that began a good work will bring it to completion on the day of Christ Jesus. But when we go through wilderness living, we begin to accept wilderness things. Jethro was an outside voice that walked into that room, into that situation, and said, hey, what you're doing is going to hurt yourself. But I got this word for you. If you just make this shift and you make this change, watch what happens to your life. Some of us, you don't even realize that you're going to be a Jethro. When people couldn't even see it in themselves, you're going to speak life into them. You're going to talk life into people. People are going to look up to your leadership. People are going to look up to your exampleship. People can look up to your faithfulness. People can look up to your servanthood. People can look up to the way you use your gifting, and watch how it unlocks somebody. I promise I'm almost done here today. So I love that on the journey of the wilderness, I was 40 years. The music team could come. In the wilderness, they were there for 40 years. We find later in the journey, as they were getting ready to get out, in Deuteronomy 30, it says, even if you have been banished to the most distant land under the heavens, from there the Lord your God will gather you and bring you back. He will bring you to the land that belonged to your ancestors, and you will take possession of it. Listen, there's some people here that we feel like we have been banished. We feel far from the calling of God, the vision of God for our life. You feel you're stuck in a certain place. You feel like you can't see yourself beyond just showing up here. But I promise you that the way that God spoke to you before, saying that there's plans for your life, there's a way I want to use you to raise up people in this house, to touch nations, and to build a church that we can move these curtains back like we did just a few weeks back, and we can have it filled with people from different nations that are settling here in Amsterdam. I believe that we're going to be voices in wildernesses that said, hey, we got a place to gather. You might feel forgotten. You might feel like you don't got it all together. You might feel broken, but I know a place for you. I know a place that you belong. I know a place where your purpose could be lived out. I believe that this is a house of destiny. This is a house where people will discover purpose, and they'll discover God, and they'll find out there's a vision and a calling on their life. Messengers in the wilderness. Who told you that you're stuck? Who told you that you're not good enough? Who told you that you're beyond that? Who told you that your best days are behind you? It's their turn. Who told you that you don't got the gifts for this house? Who told you it has to be a certain way? I serve a God that makes new ways and new paths. See, listen, man makes plans, but God makes paths. Who told you that you can't make a difference? Who told you that you don't got the gifting that God could use? Who told you that you're not the person for the job? Who told you that you're in the wrong house? I might be in the wrong church. No, you're in the right place at the right time, and God's gathering the right people here this afternoon and said, hey, you're a part of the plan, and that promise to possess nations and possess the land are still here for you. See, lastly, is we don't accept the locks of the wilderness, but what it unlocks. See, Jethro, as a voice and a messenger in the wilderness, he had an assignment on him, and he didn't even know it. He thought it was just going to be family time. Sometimes you don't even know what you're walking into. You think you're just walking into something, but you're walking into a divine moment. Some of you just thought you were coming to church, but you're stepping into a divine moment. Some of you thought you just went to Connect Group for worship night. You stepped into the divine moments. Some of you were questioning about going to the women's discipleship tonight, but you're going to step into a divine moment. See, locks, I think one of the things that I guess you could say I had to get used to over here is in the United States front doors, we have doorknobs where when you open it, but over here, maybe your home might be different, or wherever you're living might be different. It might be a door handle where you turn it once you put the key in. But over here, or the places I've stayed at the UTC, all of them just have the key only, and then you could only just pull it. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like, you can't leave it unlocked and just open it and walk back in. But here, you got the only way you can get into most homes here, or most apartments, is you got to have the key to get in. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like, when I was growing up, I used to leave my front door unlocked, and you could just walk right in, turn the knob, and people were coming over, like an open door policy at my house. Growing up, my parents, they modeled just always having people around and just loving on people, doing life with people. People always lived with us. So people would just walk in, we're just watching TV, and they watch TV with us. We're just eating dinner, they just start eating dinner with us. But one thing over here is you can't just walk into people's homes, which is a good thing. Not a bad problem. But sometimes we don't realize that in life we could almost walk to doors, and the only way we could walk through those if we have the keys. And you feel like that. Some of you guys feel like you've just been staring at a door. No window on it. Can't see on the other side. It's not a Dutch door where you could open it and there's two, the top and bottom. No, you're just looking at a steel door, a wooden door with no windows to see what's on the other side of it. See, Moses didn't realize he was standing at a door. See, he was going to keep going through this constant frustration of trying to meet the people's needs. And we see in the journey that he had to keep meeting the people's needs. And there were still challenges that came beyond the other side of the door we're about to talk about. But sometimes you don't realize that the gift of when you finally get a key to unlock. See, Jethro was walking around with keys. If you got keys in your pocket, could you get them out real quick? Who got keys? Anyone got keys in their pocket? No one's all right. There you go. Hit the jingle. Can you jingle your keys real quick? Some of you guys don't want to. It's okay. We're working. We'll get a few. We just need a few. Just see, when Jethro was walking in, he didn't realize that's what he sounded like. When he was walking into Moses' situation, he didn't realize he was walking with keys. And what he was about to do is he was about to speak something that was going to change Moses' leadership forever. See, I thank God for people that have stepped into my life with keys. And they began to speak, began to give me the key, and it unlocked something. And I began to see the blessing of what was on the other side of the door. And I began to look at the people that were keys in my life. And you could even think about people that made way for you, and they began to give you keys that unlocked something new for you. And you wouldn't have had it unless they gave you the key and showed you how to open it. And it was just for that door specific. I began to look at people that were leaders in my life. I think the first people I could look at that gave me keys was my parents, because they modeled what it is, and they still modeled it to me every day, what it is to serve God for years. And although it is hard, you still got keys to keep stepping through joys. There's something good on the other side of challenge. I've seen that from my parents. They put it in me, that key to just be faithful, to show up when it's hard, to show up when it's good, and to show up when it's bad, and to give ourselves to the ministry. I got that key, and they showed me what it is to pray someone through. I was on the other side of their prayers, and they prayed me into serving the Lord, and I saw that key work, and they gave me that key. Then also look at the keys that other leaders gave me and other influential people gave me. You know what? One of the keys, and I thank God, my wife was a key in my life. I didn't realize that my wife was a gift, and she began to unlock things in me, and she began to tell me she was exposed to so much ministry. She was a key in my life. She was a key that allowed me to get to our founder, Pastor Sonny, and his leadership's been a key in my life. I wonder how many people here today, you can look to people that gave you keys, but I thank God they don't give us keys just for ourselves, but these keys unlock others. They didn't realize my parents were unlocking something in me. My wife was unlocking something in me, and now my baby girl's unlocking something in me. Oh God, she's unlocking something in me. My pastor's been unlocking things in my life. And I thank God that he gave me keys, but what they did is they were giving me keys that unlocked others. See, Moses was given a key. He said, why do you do this all on your own? It's going to get hard to do it by yourself, Ula. It's going to get real hard to do it by yourself. Why don't you empower those that can lead thousands, those that can lead hundreds, 50s, and 10s? Why don't you unlock a nation? Why don't you unlock some people to move in their potential, to move in their gifting? Why don't you be a key, a messenger in people's wildernesses that gives them keys? And you walk in, jiggle the keys right now. And you walk in, come on, jiggle some keys right here. Move the keys real quick. You walk into moments and you don't realize that you carry keys that unlock others. If you're in this room, there's leadership in your life. If you're here in this room, there's a calling on your life. And when you use the keys God gives you, you unlock others. When you move in your gift and you get involved, you're making way for somebody else. When you open up your home for a connect group and you show up to connect group, you're unlocking something for someone else. I believe there's going to be a day that we have groups all over Amsterdam. Not only over Amsterdam, but all over the country and the city around us. We'll be in Amsterdam, we'll be in Almere, we'll be in different areas where there's going to be homes of people that are carrying keys. Not just to homes, but to potential. Oh, something good happens when you walk around with keys. When you never had a key to something and you get a new key on your keychain, you feel good. You feel like the man or the woman of that thing. Well, we've given you the keys. God's given you keys in this church. You got to walk around with that ownership of, man, these are my keys. This is my church. I don't want to come alone. I want to bring people on the journey and be a messenger in other people's wildernesses. You may feel like you don't got it, but you just got to be one step ahead. You got everything you need. If you got Jesus in your heart, you got all that you need just to be on the journey. Unlocking. I think it's most powerful when you're in the midst of a wilderness and you still carry keys. When you are walking dry and you gotta, I know they tell you, how many people are like, man, I just want to be real. I'm not gonna fake nothing. real as people. But it's not fake to show up to the house of God with joy in a hard day and still be faithful. It's not fake to show up in the house of God here on a Sunday afternoon and when you didn't have your best week and you feel like you said the wrong thing again and you didn't encourage, you didn't answer the phone calls, you didn't have the best work week, your business didn't feel like it had the best week, and you had some challenges with your children, you had some challenges at work, you had some challenges with some things, and you show up and you're like, man, I don't got nothing to give, I'm going to show up. No, look at what's in your pocket. You still got keys on you. You didn't leave them anywhere. There's still something inside you. That was your best days. The keys you got 10 years ago aren't the best keys. You got new keys. You got new hope. You got new experience. And your experience is necessary. What I love about that time in the wilderness, and I'll end with this, is what I love about what happened was that Jethro was almost that he was an older figure for him. He was someone that has more life experience. Then you got Moses that is in the beginning of his leadership journey. And then you got Joshua watching him grow up. What you see is all different generations coming together here in this room. I see a lot of generations here. I see people that have been here from the beginning of Outreach Amsterdam in the very beginning, and your faithfulness has got us this far, and how you've been jumped on. Some have jumped on the journey in the midst of the 40 years, and you're here now, and some are even fresh on the journey, but it takes all of us working together. It is not, okay, your turn type of thing. No, it's we need you type of thing. We need your investment. We need your discipleship. We need your exampleship. We need your servanthood. We need your testimonies. We need your stories. We need you to tell your stories of faith, how you dug deep and how you were exposed to big things once before. And how this was a big house one day. We're believing that that same God that was with us 40 years ago, 30 years ago, is still with us today. He's still leading our ministry. He's going to lead us into the future. There's a big task on our church. If it's your first time, I'm sorry, but I'm also not sorry. Because you walked into this church, you're not just because person. There's purpose on your life. The person that brought you here is not just because. There is something on you. Messengers in the wilderness. Can you stand with me here this afternoon? You know what my prayer is today? That you feel provoked, encouraged, loved on, but ultimately provoked. There's some intercessors in this room that we need your gift here on Wednesday nights. Some prayer warriors that you know what it is to pray heaven down and create atmospheres, and we need that here. There's some of you that are teachers, and we need your gift. When we start launching new things, we need your gift. There's some of you that are just so good with relationships, and we need you. You're the one that makes this house so impressionable. You're the one that makes this church feel like family. We need you. We need your smile. We need your worship in this room. Watch what God does. We're opening up doors. There's keys that God's given us as Victory Outreach, and we're going to be a key that unlocks other nations. You guys believe it? You believe our best days are ahead of us? Some of you, you're going to unlock a Jethro in you, and you're going to walk around with keys, and you're going to unlock something for people. I believe that you're going to have a word in season for people. I believe that you're going to have a song that our generation needs to hear, that our country needs to hear. I believe you got a word of encouragement that people are going to need. I believe that late night discipleship settings are going to be what unlocks people. If that's you and you believe it, can you lift your hands here today?